Hospital Porters Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order. Welcome to HPANWO TV. Right, I think I should let you know from the outset that this is another zombie video. Alright, and if you're absolutely fed up to the back teeth of my zombie stuff, you've watched all the videos, you've read all the articles, and you're thinking, Ben, for God's sake, will you shut up about zombies? I think I should warn you in advance that this is another zombie video, but I promise you it will be the last one. I absolutely promise that, unless I change my mind. Seriously though, this, I think the zombie subject has almost exhausted itself, so if any of you do want to keep watching, this will probably be the last time you'll get to hear about this. But, I want to thank everyone who's contributed and helped me with this, like Grump Skull and another member whose name is unpronounceable, but those two members did provide me with some documentation that I found very interesting and has shed a bit of light on this subject. Basically, I think I'm more inclined now towards the pandemic theory. I think it is quite likely that there is an element of this pandemic stuff involved. I'm not 100% certain, but I'm feeling myself more intuitively drawn towards it now than I was before. So that's quite a relief actually, because well, the idea of real zombies is pretty horrific. I don't particularly like that idea very much. Anyway, this is a review of the book Zombie Apocalypse, created by Stephen Jones. If you watch part 3 of my Real Zombies movie, you'll see where I actually first bought the book and I showed it to you. I've read the book now and I'm ready to review it. Anyway, it's Zombie Apocalypse by Robinson Books, 2010. It's created by Stephen Jones, but if you remember rightly, as I showed you before, there are many other contributors to this book. It's actually a series. It's a kind of an anthology of these various different sort of pseudo-fictional documents, or pseudo-non-fictional, I should say. As I explained in the last video, hold on a minute, I just want to check that it's all working. That's okay. Sorry, you're still there. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, as I was explaining in the last video, this book is an epistolary. That means it's a book told through a series of letters. Good examples of epistolaries are, the famous one of the most famous is the Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis, who's a local Oxford writer who wrote this story. It's basically a series of letters between one devil and a younger devil, basically instructing on how to be a good devil, or a bad devil. There's other ones like some parts of the Jewel in the Crown by Paul Scott. What's it called? The Raj Quartet. The book which the series was based on, the Jewel in the Crown. That's some of that is told through letters as well. So that's an epistolary. Of course, in this day and age, I say letters in its broadest possible sense because, as I said before, letters often means emails like these. There's an email there and tweets, and there's a whole series in here which is like text messages, tweets, and various other sort of communication through the electronic media. Now the story, I'm actually quite glad to get to the end of this because it's pretty depressing actually and very frightening, and some parts are quite upsetting. The basic story is that it's set in it's actually set in. I found you work out it doesn't actually give any dates, but you can work out through the age of one of the characters that it was actually set in the year 2012. And what happens is on the 1st of May 2012, some builders who were doing some digging in a churchyard to create a kind of new exhibition centre break open the vault or the crypt of a church that was designed by Nicholas Hawksmoor. Now, Nicholas Hawksmoor is an interesting character, and synchronistically, I actually found out a bit more about Nicholas Hawksmoor the other day through an entirely different subject. It was to do with Christopher Wren, because Nicholas Hawksmoor was actually one of Christopher Wren's draftsmen, and later he actually became a good architect in his own right. But there's rumours that he had links to black magic and things like that, and the various churches he built throughout London are connected, have sort of like reputations that they're involved with supernatural stuff, synchromystical, symbolic things, you know, pentagrams, stuff like that. Anyway, Nicholas Hawksmoor, in this book, they break in and they find out that Hawksmoor actually has, inside this crypt it's described as a cloud of red dust, but then later on they call it a virus, and then it turns out to be fleas. But apparently what it does is it causes people to turn into zombies and corpses to reanimate, and all the stuff you get in the Romero films. You know, basically what in this book is very much inspired by those films, I think. I mean, it's quite sad because, I mean, it's quite sad at times because it's told through the series of people who witness it. Very often they're very ordinary Londoners who witness this, and later on it spreads to America and Australia, and you hear, you know, people there's a woman who's a flying doctor in Australia. She's one of the flying doctors, and she gets affected, and there's a girl soldier in America who's affected. It's so, and the form that it takes, you know, these are like official memos, emails, letters, handwritten diaries, you know, like this. That makes it more vivid. It makes it more believable. The diary is actually written by a 13-year-old girl called Maddie, who ends up holed up in a secret sort of flat on the top floor of a solicitor's office. So, and she's sitting there writing her diary. So it's a bit like Anne Frank, you know, that young girl in Amsterdam who hid from the Nazis and wrote a diary. It's rather like that. And in the end, you know, it's very, 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 very upsetting. And there's things like official documentations. Some parts, I must say, are quite funny. You know, there's like a series. There's a blog, some blog articles by a bloke who's a big zombie fan, and he's a big fan of zombie films. And he finds himself trapped in a real zombie situation. There's also a series of tweets of people who are on an aeroplane and they're tweeting each other, and it is quite. I suppose it's funny, but it's quite. I don't know. It's a bit sick in a way because, you know, what happens is the zombies break out on the plane. I just look at this. This is a news site. Look at that. Basically, there's a zombie outbreak on the plane, and the stewardesses are running around going crazy. They won't say anything, and then these zombies. Basically, the plane fills up with zombies, and of course, once you're bitten by a zombie, you become a zombie yourself. And there are some funny bits. I mean, one of the most interesting parts of the film is it's a doctor's notes, right? What happens is when the zombies first come out on the 1st of May, there's a series here about there's like a police report by a policeman who has to deal with them, and then there's the doctor's report. And of course, when the zombies first start first thing when the zombies appear, no one knows what they are, so they take them to A&E in the hospital, and the doctors are describing what's wrong with them, saying things like. Staff Nurse Jenkins received a bite, and then Staff Nurse Jenkins then turns into a zombie later on. But to begin with, they do things like here we go. Right, following induced emesis, that's making people sick. Monitoring equipment was presumed to be failing to work properly, as both the patient's pulse and blood pressure readings fell to 0, despite clinical observations of the contrary. That is, the person was still alive. Replacement equipment also apparently malfunctioning, as patient is still active and aggressive. So basically, this person is a zombie and they don't recognise it. Then Staff Nurse Jenkins actually becomes a zombie herself, and it's quite funny because they have to amputate her arm because her arm has gangrene in it, and then she's in ITU afterwards, and she comes alive in ITU after she's dead. And starts walking around with one arm, a one-armed zombie walking around hurling things at people and trying to attack the other, taking bites out the other patients in intensive care, and then trying all the staff lock themselves in the office while the zombie bangs on the window, the zombie of this nurse. And it's funny because there's an attempt at kind of being. The doctors who write in these notes are sort of like they're trying to maintain professional distance and style. So they say because what happens is this zombie starts taking bites out of the other patient, and wanders out the department and starts attacking other staff and visitors to the hospital. And the doctor's quite funny because they say following. There we go. Yeah, it's quite funny. History: 31-year-old woman. And it says here her date of birth is 81, so that'll make it... Oh, it's actually, yeah, that would be... So it's 2013, this is saying. History documented in preceding case notes. Following her self-discharge from the intensive care unit. So this is how doctors talk. I mean, as a former hospital porter, I know this, and it's quite funny. Following her self-discharge from the intensive care unit, she made her way onto the grounds and attacked a number of members of staff and the general public. Her mental state was obviously in considerable disarray, and she failed to notice a approaching ambulance. It becomes quite sad. I mean, what happens to the little girl who writes the diary? And there's an old woman as well who's trapped in her flat. And, well, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but this is the book, Zombie Apocalypse, created by Stephen Jones. Basically, it's a very, very vivid and disturbing and lucid account of what would actually happen if there was a zombie outbreak, and we have organisations talking seriously about zombie outbreaks. Now, as I've said before, I'm a bit confused about why that is. I'm becoming more and more in favour of the pandemic theory, the ones which Grumpskull and other members have provided documentation that shows that, you know, this whole zombie focus, which is by Bristol City Council and by the Centre for Disease Control, could simply be a way of communicating the procedures necessary to the public, and they use the zombie motif as a kind of allegory. But I don't know that that's true. I think it's likely, but I'm not certain. So although I say this is my last zombie video, and I'm not going to write any other articles on zombies, if more information comes to light, I'll have to. And like I said, if you don't hear anything more from me on this subject, then probably I've just said it's a pandemic thing. Then that's it. But if you do hear, if I do discover more, you'll hear more from me in these videos. Like I said, I really hope it's not true. I really hope that this whole thing is just a complete confusion, misunderstanding. People having a laugh. I mean, there's a page in here which is it's like some government. The Prime Minister's dead, you see, in this scenario, and there's a report on a meeting that was held in a secret bunker, and they talk about the conference they went to when they were discussing civil contingency plans for disasters, terrorist attacks, tornadoes, things like that. And they had at the last day of the conference, apparently it's traditional, they have a laugh, and they come up with something really ridiculous. And this time they chose zombies, and the solution was, what do you do? The contingency plan was run away fucking screaming. So I mean, that unfortunately gets broadcast on the news. It's quite funny, you know. So it has its funny bits, this book. So it could be that what we're seeing in these news reports of the Guardian, and when they talk about Bristol City Council, is simply the members of the council who are responsible for organising these civil contingency plans, are simply having a laugh, and the zombie things is part of the way they amuse themselves. I imagine if it was your job to design civil contingency plans for massive meteor strikes, terrorist nuclear bombs, pandemics and things like that, if you had the unenviable task of actually doing that in your working life, you'd need to have a bit of a ghoulish sense of humour and be able to sort of like let go and do something a bit more light-hearted, you know. So if you didn't, I mean, just imagine. I imagine that job would get me down a bit. I think it would you know. So that's it, really. Zombie Apocalypse by Stephen Jones. Thank you for watching HPANWO TV. Hospital Porter's Pride and Dignity, stop the New World Order.